going to be talking about collecting data with text messaging. We believe that text messaging is a low-cost, simple, and effective way to collect data from almost anyone in the world, and there are a few reasons why. Did you know that by 2020, more than 90% of the world's population over age 6 will have a cell phone, and that even today, more people have cell phones than toilets, and 350 billion text messages are sent every month. So we think that text messaging should be a part of your data collection toolkit, and we think that you should consider using RapidPro to design messaging workflows and collect this data. A little bit about us first. You may know me from Cactus, but I am recently a Cactus alum. As of Monday, I started at Transloc, which is a public transportation technology company down the road. But during the previous 4 years at Cactus, among other things, I built text messaging applications with RapidPro and without that have been used in countries around the world to collect data and provide services.
And just real quickly, I'm Erin Mullaney. I am a current Cactus Group developer. If you're not familiar with Cactus Group, we are a web firm in Durham, North Carolina, working mostly with Python and Django. I've been a developer for about 12 years, and I've been at Cactus for about a year and a half. I've worked on different RapidPro related projects like the TrackPro, the data visualization tool, which I'll be talking about later today, and the community portal. As Cactus, we did not build RapidPro, but we do offer it as a software as a service option and promote it because we find it to be such an excellent tool for SMS. And with that.
Oops. So to get started, here's a quick definition of what RapidPro is in case you haven't heard of it before. At its core, RapidPro is a tool for creating interactive messaging systems. You can use it to create messaging workflows and collect, analyze, and categorize input from users. Users participate via SMS or other messaging channels, and they move through the flow according to the logic that you define. You can view or download the data that you collect, or you can export it via the API to have custom processing or integrate with an external system. Most importantly, you don't have to be a programmer to use RapidPro. The GUI allows anyone to create complex workflows, and you can immediately start collecting data from users. But because it is open source and it has a great API, it is good for development too, or maybe start without development and add it on later. Okay, so we are going to talk about 4 main topics today. SMS, how it is used today and why we think that that you should use it for data collection. Then I will talk about the high-level components of RapidPro. Erin will dive into the survey that you took today to show you more of how it was built, and she'll talk about the data API that you can use to extract data for analysis and external applications. SMS has been around for a while, and a lot has changed in that time. We have a lot of other communication options like email and Twitter and Facebook and instant messaging apps like WhatsApp. But globally, SMS is still the #1 tool used to access information. And this is because it is not reliant on things like constant network access or speed. It's available on all operating systems, Android, iOS, and even basic phones. There is no need for users to install another app or create another account or learn a new interface to use your product. Sometimes it seems like everyone, at least in the US, has a computer and a smartphone, but this isn't necessarily the case. Even though more than 90% of the people in the US own a cell phone, only some 65% own smartphones. And in some areas, low network coverage and poverty can push that number lower, as well as many places outside the US don't have as much access to smartphones. Furthermore, alternatives like Twitter, Snapchat, WhatsApp tend to reach different segments of the population. In contrast, SMS covers a broad group of demographics. And from a business standpoint, SMS is pretty inexpensive to implement. The technical needs are well defined, there's no visual UI to create, and many users already know how to use the product and can use it from wherever they are at. SMS is used for things like surveys, like user satisfaction surveys after they've used a product, or values questionnaires to gauge their political interests. It powers consumer services like prescription refill, or the next time that the bus will arrive at the stop that you're at. It can be used to power customer service lines or allow users to send in questions and feedback. I'm sure you can think of other uses. We have a couple of specific examples. SMS has been used to improve healthcare in various countries, including Rwanda. Community healthcare workers send in data about maternal milestones or maybe measurements of early childhood growth data over the course of time as they see patients. Centralized aid organizations aggregate and analyze this information, and with it they can determine they can track trends, they can track changes, and they can see which parts of the country may be in need of additional programs to address healthcare issues. Text messaging is used domestically and internationally for education applications. It can be used to, say, track information about class sizes and attendance, especially over a large or remote region. Research has also shown that text message reminders can be used to nudge students in the right direction and stay on track when applying to college at a very low cost per student. The last example I'll give you today is in Libya, a North African country which is experiencing a lot of political turmoil. Cactus is proud to have helped implement SMS voter registration there because traveling to voter registration centers can be difficult or dangerous, but most people have or have access to a phone that's equipped with text messaging at home. Also, people don't have to worry about whether changes will get lost or delayed because they can check them immediately. And additionally, officials and even the public can monitor progress with a real-time dashboard, which is pretty cool. So several of the aforementioned examples are powered by RapidPro, which, like I mentioned, is a tool to design applications and services that connect with users via text messaging. UNICEF is a large international aid organization that sponsored the creation of RapidPro to address 3 key problems that they saw over and over again when building text message applications and services. First, they wanted to be able to iterate and validate their ideas before investing in custom software development. They didn't want to have to build from the ground up their whole messaging infrastructure for each project. Second, they wanted to create canonical tools for all the infrastructure that SMS applications typically need, but they also wanted an API where the data could be retrieved and individual developers or for individual projects could pull out that data and use it as needed for a variety of applications. Finally, they wanted to be able to scale successful projects from, a small pilot to maybe thousands or millions of users. RapidPro is easy to use, easy to get started with, but powerful enough to do that. And it's open source, so if you need changes or have custom architecture needs, then you can deploy it yourself and make the changes that you need. RapidPro doesn't limit you to text messaging or even one communication channel. You can maintain a whole suite of channels so that you can connect with individual users on whichever channel works best for them. You can connect with a phone gateway to interface with phone network operators, and many of these services like Twilio also offer interactive voice response, which is the technology used to power interactive helplines, like if you call Time Warner Cable, and you can run your flows over that as well. You can send messages via social media sites like Twitter and Facebook, Telegram, and more, and if all else fails, there's an API to connect external services. To get started quickly, you might consider downloading the Android app that the creators made so that you can turn your own phone into an SMS gateway, or use Twitter so that you can test flows on your own computer for free. Okay, so RapidPro has a GUI-based flow editor that allows you to design complex workflows with no need for a software developer, and you can iterate quickly and validate your ideas and develop the right thing for your audience. A flow is made up of a series of actions, rules, and connections. As a first approximation, you could think of it as a survey, and actions are operations taken by the system, like sending a message to the user or calling an external API. Rules are logical tests that are performed against the user's current state in the flow. In a survey, you would want to categorize user input into groups like, say, healthy patients and unhealthy patients. Finally, connections join actions with rules. We might want to take different actions for healthy patients versus unwell ones. But flows are more than just surveys. The flow editor is really like a mini language, and it allows you to perform many actions and do many things. And Erin will dive into that in a few minutes. So to help you understand your data, yes, you'll want to manage your audience. You can upload contacts either individually or in bulk if you know who people are. For example, you collected numbers on a sign-up sheet. But you can also use keyword triggers to allow people to join your flow like you did earlier today. And you can group contacts. You can group them into known and existing groups like healthy and unhealthy patients. Or you could group them into arbitrary groups. We could group group users according to the answer to what is your favorite color without having to create groups for all of the colors before doing this. And you can store information on user profiles. To help you understand your data, RapidPro offers a handful of modest built-in analytics like the type that you see here, but chances are you're going to have custom needs for analysis or other things, and you'll want to organize your data differently. That's where the API comes in. RapidPro provides powerful tools for collecting data, but it remains intentionally unopinionated about what you're doing with this data. So you can use the API and get to your data and build a custom management dashboard to view and analyze your results.
Okay, now that Rebecca's taken us on an excellent high-level overview of RapidPro, let's take a deep dive into the survey that a lot of you took today. So you walked in the room today. We didn't ask you for your phone numbers. We didn't ask you for your Twitter handles, but yet you were able to connect with our RapidPro instance and take a survey. So how did we start a flow without any contacts? The way we did that today was, and Rebecca mentioned this earlier, was via a keyword trigger. So your contacts do not have to exist ahead of time. Do you remember what your keyword trigger was today? Yeah, PyData. So a couple things to think about when you're creating your keyword trigger for your flow. You cannot include special characters in your keyword trigger, and this keyword trigger is available for all channels. Today we used it for both channels that we have set up on our RapidPro instance, both the Twitter channel and the SMS channel. So you could have taken the survey via either channel. The way you want to create your keyword trigger is either from within the flow itself. So when you're inside of RapidPro and you're editing your flow, you click on the little gear and you click edit, and this allows you to modify a few high-level things about your flow, including the name. But here you can set as many global keyword triggers as you want. And if any of these conflict with an existing keyword trigger in your instance of RapidPro, when you click on save, it'll warn you, okay, you've already used this. You don't want to use it more than one place. You can expire your inactive contacts, and you can also tell your flow, while people are taking this survey, I want to ignore the keyword trigger PyData. I don't want people to get looped back into the beginning of the flow. The other way to create a keyword trigger is from the top level triggers menu in RapidPro, and I'll show you that in a second. The reason that you might want to do it this way is if you want to target a specific group, and if your contacts already exist in RapidPro and you know that you don't want just anybody taking this survey. So before I dive into the flow again, there are about 6 different types of triggers in RapidPro. I find 3 of them to be really useful and powerful. One being the keyword trigger, another being the group join trigger. So let's say you're a 6th grade teacher or a school administrator and you want your parents to be able to sign up for SMS alerts. You're going to send them all alerts every week, and maybe occasionally an additional alert, just an informational thing. They can self-select into your instance of RapidPro and into this group that you select here. Okay, so I've created this group 6th grade parents, and anybody who texts the word grade 6 to my phone number that I have set up is going to get this response and going to be added to that group. You can also, at this step, I haven't here, but I could have kicked off a new flow that collected information from them about their student. So it's pretty powerful. The third one that I find really useful is the scheduling flow. So let's say, by Wednesday afternoon, folks are going to have the information that they need in order to take your survey. And you have those folks in your instance of RapidPro already. So I'm going to select them, the flow, and I'm going to select the contacts either individually or I've already grouped them. So I'm going to grab that 6th grade parents group maybe and send them out a survey on Wednesday afternoon and create that scheduled flow. Those are the 3 triggers I find really powerful, but let's dive back into the flow and think about it at a really high level. So when we're building our surveys in RapidPro, it really boils down to these things. You're sending a message, you're categorizing the response that you get back, you're doing something, and then you're repeating. That's it. It's pretty simple. And if you're thinking about it like in pseudocode, maybe you've drawn these things out before where you've written out an if-else or a switch case, and you've thought through all the many different responses someone might have when they get to a certain point in your code. I know I've written this out a million times when I'm thinking through writing my if-else or switch case statements. And RapidPro allows as many categories as you want. So as we were building the flow, the questions we asked ourselves at each step along the way was, what kind of responses can we get? How do we want to categorize them? What do we want to do for those categories? And how do we deal with categories outside of the responses? So when you're categorizing responses, a quick tip that you want to think about is RapidPro is not case sensitive. So today when you were taking our survey, if you answered in all caps, RapidPro did not think you were yelling at it. So when you're categorizing your responses, in this case, we asked you, would you like to take our survey as the first question. Probably did want to take our survey since you sent in the keyword trigger, but we wanted to make sure. So we expected either a yes or a no answer. RapidPro allows you to really think about yes and no through like all the different iterations. I could have kept going, but in this case I just thought, hey, if they answer with a Y, they probably mean yes. If they answer with an N, they mean no. And I came up with a couple other responses that RapidPro would understand and categorize. And if I scroll back here, you can see we've got my yes category and my no category, and then this other category that I didn't build. So other is always there. So if you create a step where you have 5 categories, you're always going to have a 6th category, other. How do you deal with it? Well, you might ask your question again in a new way. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Did you want to take the survey? Yes or no? You can loop back into the original question. You can accept the other response and just move on. I'm just going to assume that they meant yes, they wanted to take the survey. Or you can do nothing. I don't recommend this one because you're just going to kind of die in the survey and not go anywhere. So here's our first question again. And in this case, it's kind of hard to tell because there's lots of pipes going everywhere, but the other loops back in to the original question, just asks it again, just to keep things simple. Another step we might have wanted to take here was breaking out into a new step to create a counter and make sure we didn't end up in an endless loop here and continually bother this person and ask them the same question again and again forever. And RapidPro allows you to create variables like that, which brings me to expressions. So RapidPro actions and expressions. Let's talk about expressions. So what are they? They're basically the data of RapidPro. This is a lot of this talk, we talk through RapidPro terminology, so you may not think of things as expressions, you may more think of them as variables. And you may not think of things as flows, you may more think of them as surveys, but this is just what RapidPro calls them. So your expressions start with an @ symbol. They are the data of your flow. So in this case, if you wanted to use a flow variable at a later part, some data that you gathered within your flow, you would use @flow.resultName.text and use that in some fashion. If you have contact information and you want to personalize your experience, you might want to use @contact.firstname. Hey, Rebecca, do you want to take our survey today? To really personalize the SMS survey experience. You can learn more about RapidPro expressions and functions on the knowledge base. But something to keep in mind is the syntax of all of the functions you can use in RapidPro is modeled on Excel. So a lot of those Excel functions, upper and lower, concat, and then just the really basic math functions, plus, minus, percent, all of those things are available in RapidPro. One other thing that's available when you're categorizing your responses is regex. And we didn't use it today, but it can really be great to ensure data integrity. So what actions can you take, and which ones did we take today? Today we added you to groups in RapidPro. So we asked you what state you lived in and what state you were born in, and then we broke out here in this, on the far right, the split by expression, and we said, do those two states match? If they do, we're going to add you to home state. If they don't, we're going to add you to this other group state. As you can see, we took 2 actions at those steps where we added you to a group as our contact, and we also sent a message to you. And again, you can take as many actions as you want at each step along the way. We also edited your contact information. So we didn't have a lot of contact information about you. When you took our survey, we had your phone number or we had your Twitter handle, depending on how you took our survey. But at the next last step, we asked you for your first name, just to kind of show you the fact that you can edit a contact. So we saved that to the contact name field. Finally, another action we took today was we called an external API. And we've given this talk before at a few months ago at PyCon, and this was not in the original talk, but we added this today to today's talk because we find this really particularly powerful for you data heads. So we called an external API, and it was kind of a silly one. So we asked you what your favorite Pokemon was. If you couldn't come up with one and you wanted us to suggest one, we used the rand between built-in function, and we knew there were 812 Pokemon. Who knew? And we generated a random one for you. If you did know the name of your Pokemon, we went to that one. And apologies if the API call failed. That API randomly fails at times. But when it does, we built a failure thing there, which actually is connected to the rest of the flow, just to let you know, oh, sorry, we weren't able to connect to it. There are so many actions you can take in RapidPro, and you can, like I said, I could have taken all of these actions at one step if I wanted to. This is the list of actions that you can take at each step. We did do a number of these in our flow today, but there were some, like sending an email, that we didn't do, that are just nice to know that they're there. Okay, so now that we've talked about actions and expressions, let's dig deep into expressions and talk about calculating variables. I don't know if you noticed we had a calculated variable today. It was really silly. It was the percentage of PyDatas that you attended per year, because that's a thing. That's useful information. So we first asked you how many years you've been working with Python. We then asked you how many of these PyData conferences you've gone to. We then used a expression, flow.pydata.text divided by flow.years.text and multiplied it by 100 in order to repeat back to you your percentage of PyData conferences per year's working with Python, in case you were curious. So that was a calculated variable. So this is a really silly example of a calculated variable, but they could be pretty powerful. Let's say you work in a medical field and you want to calculate the next time of an appointment for a patient of yours, and you know their last appointment because you called your API and you have that data. You can calculate their next appointment as well, perhaps with one of the built-in date functions. Okay, so we've talked about the survey that you took today. Let's dive deep into the RapidPro API. So accessing data via the API is super, super useful. Rebecca mentioned it during the deep dive that RapidPro exposes a comprehensive API. And using the API, which is documented here, if you have a RapidPro instance that you're using, I think the address is your RapidPro instance /v1/API or something like that. And that brings you to the live API Explorer. Don't quote me on that. You might want to go to that knowledge base to find that. But the API allows you to get data from your surveys that you've been sending, post changes. Maybe you want to post some changes to your contacts or something like that. You can start a flow. You can manage your contacts. You can monitor events that are going on. As a very basic step, you can go to your RapidPro instance and just not even thinking about the API, just download your results to a CSV file, which is pretty useful for immediate results. But if you want something that's going to refresh constantly and you want to build these, you probably want to think about building a custom dashboard that accesses your API. At Cactus, we've done a couple of these. We did this one with these charts here for UNICEF. They were using RapidPro to gather educational data, and they were sending out surveys to their teachers to find out how many students were coming to their classes each day and what chapter they were on in the text and things like that. So we built this data visualization site for them that made these data points then available and charted numerically. The one on the left charted numerically. It also allowed you to filter down to specific groups if you wanted to only look at this specific region. And then on the right-hand side, we've got our map that we built. RapidPro also allows you on the back end to add shapes files. So on this data visualization site, we connected the shapes. We pulled down the shapes locally and we said, okay, now we've got these shapes. How do you want to connect them to your data? So we allowed the user to connect the shapes to groups. And then we displayed the most common categorical results within each poll. TrackPro is completely open source and available there. TrackPro uses a local set of the data, so it's constantly running Celery. There's actually a Celery talk tomorrow. Celery is really cool. It's using Celery on the back end to pull RapidPro and keep the poll data and the contact data and the group data locally so that it can build these charts really fast without connecting to the API each time. A different way, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's see. We also, for PyCon, built a custom dashboard. We thought it would be cool to poll people who came by our booth at PyCon this year. So we built this custom dashboard here where we just asked them 2 questions. You know, where did you travel from? And did you travel on a Django pony? And they responded. And then we had this nice little dashboard. In this case, we didn't use Celery because it was so small. So rather than keep the data locally, we do poll the API continually, but we only refresh the website if there's a new response. So it's a pretty smart website. And it's not even Django, it's like even simpler. It's just straight up HTML and JavaScript that's using the former site and this site are both using high maps and high charts, and those are really cool data visualization tools if you're familiar with them. So I think we're going to switch back to Rebecca for the summary.
So in summary, we think that text messaging can be a really cool thing for you to use for data collection. It can reach people all around the world pretty simply and effectively. And especially if you're wanting to reach a large and diverse audience, and RapidPro can be a help with that. So you might want to use RapidPro for your projects. We would suggest getting started by going to the community portal, reading some of the documentation, seeing how other people are using it, learning about the API. It's open source if you're interested in diving into it. There is a commercially hosted version that you can experiment with called TextIt. It's really, they give you some free credits to start with, so you can go to textit.in, build some flows, use the simulator to test it out, maybe hook up to Twitter if you want to try it out with friends, and move on beyond that if you are like with hooking up to an SMS gateway if you're looking to get that out to real users. But at some point you might decide that you want to host RapidPro yourself. The words get mixed up sometimes. And there are some reasons why you might want to do that. If you have a high volume of text messages or messages in general going in and out, TextIt charges a pretty notable fee on top of any fees that you have from your SMS gateway like Twilio. And that will add up over time. You might have custom storage needs because the commercially hosted version is stored on AWS servers in Ireland, which may or might not work for you. It's also not HIPAA compliant, so if you are storing medical data, maybe you need additional security policies implemented. You also might want custom feature development. The code is open source with an AGPL license, so you can do that if you'd like. Cactus can help with that. They provide training both for people building flows and surveys or for the end users who might take it if you have a known audience. There is RapidPro hosting if you'd like to host it. There you can integrate this data with an existing external application or build another one, build a new custom dashboard for your data. So thank you for
And please visit us at our booth today and tomorrow. We have some really cool giveaways, and follow us on Twitter at Cactus Group, as we will be giving away some of Mark Lavin's books. I think that's tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, and he'll be signing those. And if you want to learn more about RapidPro, that's the link. And we actually talked really fast, so I apologize for that, but it means we have time for questions.
All right. If you have a question, wait for the microphone so we can capture it for the video. Here we go.
I really like a lot of what you guys talked about today. I'm curious, in a world that's very concerned about scams, do you encounter any trust issues, and how do you deal with those?
Few answers to that. A lot of times the programs that we've worked with are working directly with end users in different ways. Maybe, for example, in Rwanda, the healthcare example I gave, where community healthcare workers are sending data back to the centralized or aid organizations. The community health workers are receiving a lot of information about this program, not just a random message coming out. So you might address it in that way through education with your users when you need to. And also, a lot of services like Twilio, for example, implement, if you send the word stop to a Twilio managed SMS gateway, Twilio is going to opt out that user. Like, I can no longer send that user anything until they allow me to again. So individual users can manage that way.
Next question.
So I think you've mentioned a couple aspects of this already, specifically with the API bringing in data and then, I guess, pushing out data as well. But I wonder if you could kind of tie it together for me. I'm thinking of a specific situation where you've got a customer and you know that they have a specific set of products that you have stored in a database somewhere, and you want to ask them what their experience has been with those specific products tied to a specific phone number. Is that something you could do? And then, in an ideal world, push that back in real time to that database so we have some sort of tracking of that customer's experience.
Yeah, sure. So that ties into the Pokemon example. So in that case, I think you would just send the phone number into your API, if that's what you're using as an ID, as a sort of like field to filter out who you're looking for, and say, oh, here's the phone number of the person. I want to know the products that I need to ask them about. And you would need to build that in your API, and then you could call your API with that API calling action that we showed on that slide. We will make these slides available too later. Does that answer your question, or no, not quite? Okay.
How does that tie into pushing the data back? Just to follow up, as terms of like sending the data back, would that look pretty similar?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I can imagine that you'd be able to do it both ways. I can't imagine that you wouldn't be able to call an API with data. We haven't tested that one, but I would imagine you could call your API with data and save it as well. I don't see why not.
More questions? All right then, everybody, thank our speakers.